down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
All right, savvy investors out there. Man, I say the same intro. Anyway, it is early in the morning and I'm getting ready for the annual landlord convention going down in St. Louis. And I was like, man, I need to get these podcasts done. And so I was trying to think about what could I talk about that would increase your life. And so one of my popular books is called 301 Questions and Answers for Real Estate Investors. Throughout this little career of mine, almost 20 years, I have had the craziest stories, the craziest questions, and the craziest things that I thought that I would never see. And so today I'm going to cover about 7 questions that I received, and it's from my book, 301 Questions. It's on Amazon, so if you want to check that out. And if you've never heard me before, you're ready. Get ready for a treat. No, just you may not like me by the end of this episode, but that's okay. My name is Steven Van Kellenberg. I am the Savvy Landlord, and you've just stepped into the Savvy Radio Show. All right, so down and dirty, questions and answers on cash flow, tenant issues, and a little bit more and all that other jazz. All right, so what's a good average cash flow on a rental property? I mean, I get that a lot. And the simplest question is, I know this is cliche or not cliche, but as much as possible. Yes, as much as possible. My second thing that I think about when acquiring a real estate investment, also known as an asset, things that put money in my pocket, is did I do it with no money down? Man, for a long time, I was just buying on cash flow, kind of in the hood of good, and if it breathed and it had 70% LTV that I could, I can buy it for, meaning if the property was $100,000 and I can get a loan for $70,000 and I got it under contract for 55, 65, 68, 69, even 70, I would buy it just for some sort of cash flow. So ideally, I always think about what is it worth for me to drive over there. And, $150 sounds good. I think I usually don't do a deal less than $100 a month. And I usually don't do a deal if it doesn't have at least $10,000 of equity in the property. So definitely duck under that, under 70%. And $300 a month is a home run. So hopefully I didn't mess that up. It is early in the morning. Number 2, does my insurance cover my tenant's belongings? No. And you need to be very clear when you are communicating with a tenant. For example, I always give this speech, you got this brand new couch. And for example, the tenant above you forgets to unclog the toilet and they flush the toilet and it overflows and it comes through from the top floor through your ceiling and damages your poor brand new couch. Who's responsible? You are, the tenant. And so we're very clear. There's like several places in my lease, and I do a separate piece of paper that just outlines why is it important to go get renter's insurance. It's crazy, stupid affordable, like $10, $12, maybe $15 a month. And you just educate your tenant that they can get that insurance on top of usually their car. So if they got Shelter, State Farm, Geico, whatever, you can add renter's insurance on top of that. Number 4, what's a good amount I should set aside for repairs and vacancies and make readies? Now, in the beginning, there's that saying, house rich, cash poor. And when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, dude, that's all I thought about. How can I buy assets? I would starve. I would miss meals. I would that's another $100 towards another asset that's going to bring me back another $100 for the rest of my life. All right. So what's a good amount? Usually it's about 6 months. So I know you may have read this before. Some people say 3 months. I'm kind of conservative in this area, in this arena. Plus it looks really good on bankers, and bankers pay attention. They understand there's a thing called vacancies, repairs, and changeovers. So for example, and some people base it on gross rent. Some people base it on just their mortgage payment. It's, it's at your discrepancy of how much you can handle in stress. So 6 months. So if your payment's $200, pretty simple, $1,200 a month in savings per that property. Start this simple discipline now. You won't have the drama and madness later. All right. So if it's $500 a month, $3,000, pretty simple math. Do it. What do I do when number 4, what do I do when a house I bought turned out to be a bad deal? And you thought it was a gem and you thought it was everything you thought it was. Well, welcome to the club of hard knocks. Okay. And this is just crazy. I just sold one of my, I would say, worst properties. I've had so much difficulties with roughneck tenants, and it doesn't have central heat and air. So the floor furnace goes out. The city goes crazy when they come over there. It's not vented properly, and it just wasn't a bad deal. And I purchased that property in a 3 package deal, and at the time I thought I got a deal. But when I factor in all the headache and drama, this was not a deal, and it wasn't worth it. So how do you turn a bad deal into a good deal? Well, dump it now, get rid of it. Usually someone, and I just sold it. So, and I didn't think I could ever sell it. And someone that has a similar business model that I have, that has a bunch of houses in the hood rat area, and they gobbled it up for what I had in it. So I sold it for 20, and I had about 20 in it, in about 4 or 5 years of headache and drama. I'm not an accountant, so I really don't know exactly what my ROI was, but brain damage is not worth, $10 a month, $50 a month, $1,000 a month. So what do you do when you got a bad deal? I feel your pain. Suck it up. Get rid of it as fast as you can. And I've noticed in the past, and through doing this, is that sometimes you just got to take losses. All right. So just think about it. And try to cut your losses as soon as possible. You don't want that thing to drag on. And one thing that I think about when I have a problem, and I have a couple of units that I really just didn't buy right. I was in a hurry and emotion. Some of them I dumped early. But one thing that I realized, that it's a shelter of sorts, that you will get depreciation at the end of the year straight on your bottom line. You also have the ability to write off some repairs, and there's some tricks and stuff in there. So you're not really losing. You just got to suck it up and think of another way. You can also owner finance it to somebody. You can do a wraparound mortgage to somebody. You can do a master lease with somebody. Lower the rent, whatever it takes. Just pre-qualify your tenant as much as possible. All right. Number 5, should I let the tenant paint the property a color of choosing? You don't listen. Look what I learned. I don't know where I learned this from, but consistency matters, and it saves money in the long run. Every property that I have is painted the exact same way with the exact same paints, and I use Sherwin-Williams. I was on Valspar for a long time, and I changed that deal about a couple years ago. And has changed me. These are the 3 colors. Any worker can go to Sherwin-Williams and say, this is our account. This is the color. When people start changing colors, it's a nightmare. And you can't match it. You can, but you can't. And it's just a hassle, and it's not worth it. I don't have them paint it. If they persist or whatever, I'll charge them a massive fee, and then I'll have them paint it back. And usually it's not worth it. So should you have your tenants paint your house? No. And here's another thing. Even though you think you're like, there's some hustler, new entrepreneur / real estate investors out there. Oh, that's free labor. I'll just drop off the cans. I've done that. But I found that they do a terrible job. They're not painters. And they spill all over your nice little $1,000 carpet. They don't clean up properly. It's just don't do it. If you really want to accommodate someone, you hire a contractor, you handle the situation, and you get it painted, and then you work out a plan from there. And when you do that, make sure you get it in writing. And, like you're painting this property, and to turn it back to the original color is going to be another $350 fee, la da 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 da, and have them sign off it. So when they bounce out and they were like, why'd you deduct my deposit? $350, it's right here, you signed it. So it just saves time and think ahead. Number 6, what appliances come with the property? Now, this is a good one. First of all, the reason why it's a good one, it's a money maker. Number 2, there's no set standard. In Oklahoma law, only thing that I'm required as a landlord is to provide a safe, habitable, whatever, functional plumbing home. That means the toilet is functional and there's heat in the property. That's it. It doesn't say anything about stoves, doesn't say anything about refrigerators, doesn't say anything about washer and dryers. So years ago, I thought the slumlords out there were terrible that they didn't provide a stove. And I'm like, wow, and I can't believe that tenants were like, you don't have a stove. This is what I do. I do provide a stove. They're relatively inexpensive, and people tend not to steal stoves because usually where they're moving to, they usually have a stove in it. So it's pretty standard, but I do not provide a refrigerator. And a lot of reasons is like they break down. And when they do, you got to run over there and replace it. Usually the tenant/resident is upset. They're pissed off that they just went to the grocery store, spent $300 on groceries. You think Walmart's a deal? No. Anyway, and they're pissed and they want you to pay for it. So I just avoid that whole drama and say, no, we don't provide it. And usually they'll go rent it themselves. They'll go buy it themselves is what we want them to do. And for an additional $25 to $50, I'll rent you a refrigerator and or a washer and dryer. And I charge you a delivery fee. So there's money to be made. I was trying to calculate the other day, was 100 units, over 100 units, blah, 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 probably 50%. I mean, I'm making a couple $1,000s a month just on appliance rental. And it's just a free headache that I don't have to deal with. I do have an appliance agreement that we don't guarantee it. We have give us 2 days to go get you a new one if something breaks. So consider appliances, renting them out, not having some, so on, so forth. I'm going to leave you with number 7. It's not the most cheery answer, but it's the fact of life. A tenant just called, number 7. A tenant just called in tears and said she lost her job. What should I say? Well, first of all, you should have empathy, feel for them and say, man, I'm sorry, usually, depending on how they approach you. And this is a very delicate area, and you want to be, comforting, sympathetic, but you have to remember that you're owning a business. Don't allow yourself to get stuck into someone else's personal problems. Ask the tenant if they have family or friends, that they could call for assistance. And, sometimes as a male, we just want to solve problems, and I have this issue. Sometimes they just want to listen, and you could just, repeat, I understand. There's also organizations that can help you, but you got to realize that this is a business. It is sad, but life happens, and usually when someone gets fired, it's for a good cause, and in a regard that it pushes yourself, that you are being complacent. But you can't say that to them. But in my mind, I'm just loving on them as much as possible. Remember, you have 100 other tenants that you got to take care of, or whatever, 10 tenants. And remember that you're not a doormat. Remember, this is a business, and you're running a business, and that the future is in your hands. And if you're giving away free rent, and you're not going to grow a business. And I've learned this the hard way. Years ago, a tenant would call me, and I'm real emotional and loving, trying to be person. And a girl calls me up, and I have cancer, and I'm dying, and and I genuinely really believed her, and I helped her as much as possible. And then one day, I just had this weird feeling in my spirit, heart, gut, whatever you want to say. And I called the hospital she said she was at, and she never had cancer, and she never went to that hospital. And it was just a weird deal. And so I realized throughout life, I'm sorry. again, you've committed and I always say this in the back of my mind, you can't go to a restaurant, eat the food and say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't pay for it, I lost my job. No, you can go to jail. It's stealing. And I think the same thing in rental property. If you don't pay your rent, it's stealing. And you're stealing usually out of your children's hand, out of their mouth, because you're providing for them. And that's what assets do. They provide for people and they make the world go round. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. It's a little early in the morning. I wasn't as enthusiastic as normal, but that's all right because there's other podcasts just next. So if you really enjoyed that, the book is 301 questions. Man, there's 200 something, 99, 90, whatever left. So go get a copy. I'd appreciate the support. Other than that, whatever you do, go buy assets. This is Steve Van Kallenberg. I'm the SavvyLandlord.com. If you want to hear more radio episodes or back catalog, go to SavvyRadioShow.com. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at SavvyRadioShow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.